One of the user-friendly features I want to see in all of your projects is a tab index order that allows the user to tab from object to object on your program's interface using the tab key of the keyboard versus having to use the mouse to click around the different objects. There's a couple of things you can do. One is you can use the properties window to select the tab index value for each object. But you need to understand that it's important that there are no two objects on the form that have the exact same tab index value. The method of using the properties window to set the tab index property values for individual objects is a little bit cumbersome. I'm going to show you an easier way. But while I'm here, I also want to talk about the tab stop property. Not all objects have a tab stop property. The tab stop property can be set to either true or false. You might understand that if the tab stop property is true, then that object will be affected by the tab key. You can tab and stop at that object. If the tab stop property is set to false, the object will not receive the focus when the user is tabbing using the tab key of the keyboard. Some objects, such as labels, do not have a tab stop property. Now they have a tab index value, but not a tab stop property. Why would you want to have a tab index value if you don't have a tab stop property? I'm going to explain that to you when I talk about providing a keyboard shortcut to an object such as a text box. So you can set the tab stop property, you can set the tab index value using the properties window. However, here's what I'd like you to learn how to do. Select the form, pull down the view menu, and select tab order so we can view the tab order. Notice that each object has the little blue square with a number in it. Now it is possible we might see duplicates. I'm pointing at, but I'm being very careful not to click. When I click on an object, then the object will receive or set, starting with 0, the tab index order. And I'm going to click through the objects in the logical order I think the user might want to access these different objects. Some of the objects I don't want the user to access necessarily. In this particular program, I want the user to start out with entering a zip code. But I don't want to start with this zip code. I want to start with this label up here. Excuse me, down here I said I don't want to start with the text box. I want to start with the label. So I'm going to click that. Even though it is already 0, that's 0. Now I'm going to click this one. I want this one to be the very next object in the tab index order. That's going to come into play when I talk about keyboard shortcuts in another video. Now, the user isn't typically going to go to either of these two. So I could skip over them. These are both labels. So they're not going to go here. These are for just display purpose only. The next thing they would probably do after typing in the zip code in the text box would be to click the display shipping button. Logically, the next thing they might do would be to either go back to the zip code text box and enter another zip code or exit key. I'm going to do the exit key as the 4th tab index order. Remember, 0, 1, 2, 3, that's 4. Now notice that the others are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can leave them as they are because, again, these are all objects that the user would not necessarily tab to. Unless, of course, you want the user to be able to select directly from a list box. We'll talk about that in a separate video also. I'm going to leave the tab index order as it is now, and I'm going to go up to the view menu and turn off the tab index order. Otherwise, if I click on something, it continues resetting those values. Let's do a quick test and see that the focus begins in the text box, which is actually the 2nd tab index order. Because the label, which is the 1st tab index, cannot receive the focus goes to the next object that is able to receive the focus using the tab key. I'm going to press the tab key. Notice that it's hard to tell, but the focus went to the display button. I'm going to press the tab key again. Focus went to the exit. Now, I'm going to press the tab key. I suspect that the focus is going to go to this list box. And it did. Now I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard, and we'll talk about this particular project being able to select directly from a list box. We'll talk about that in another video. As always, if you have any questions, send me an email. Try to be as specific as possible. Thank you.